Good morning. This is Jason Dean coming live at you again for another Film Fanatic show. It's 10:26 on a Friday. Pretty nice day. A little cloudy, but pretty sunny. Weather's been pretty kick-ass lately. I think it's supposed to rain tomorrow, but anyway, I'm going to see a friend's band play tomorrow at this place called Tattooed Dads up in Jackson, Maine, which I've driven by a bunch of times. It's a little brew pub up in the mountains up there. So it looks like a super cool spot. So I have a friend that's playing there with his son Monty, who is just a phenomenal drummer. He's a young kid. They have a funk band, so I'm gonna go check that out tomorrow. I'm kind of excited. Hopefully the weather's okay. So I think mostly it's outside, but it is what it is. It'll be a few days. Also, probably I don't know, maybe 3 days, 2 or 3 days until I get to do a video. So this will be the last video for a little bit, and then I'll resume my usual activity shortly thereafter. So lately I've been doing, I'm still doing, of course, doing my movie shows, but I've been doing music shows lately too a lot. And again, I've always said music and film and all those things are so, for me, they're all completely interconnected. So I want to, give a big thanks and shout out to people who have been commenting and talking, leaving nice comments on some of these different videos, if you will. I've been lately. I've been doing a lot of music shows, and that's been a lot of fun. I like to always bring variety along with the film reviews. I've been doing a lot of reviews on a lot of recent bands that I got into that are in the kind of the noise experimental music genre. That's a music I've always loved and has always been a part of a big influence for my band Quantum. So I've been really exploring a lot of that kind of music, and I've been doing shows on that and on a bunch of bands I discovered fairly recently. I also did a show on a band that I've been really fortunate enough to become a member of, and I've been a big fan of theirs for quite a while, and that is Osmia. I just uploaded, or I should say, I just posted that video. I want to thank all the people who have been commenting on that, and then I am in the midst now of, and it'll be uploaded probably within a half hour or so, and I'm uploading a new video, another music video about my band Quantum, and kind of all about our experiences playing at the All Roads Festival here, that's based in Belfast, Maine. This was about 2 weeks ago. We played there. It's hard to believe it's 2 weeks ago. We played there about 2 weeks ago, and it was our third time there. So, an amazing festival, easily the best music festival around. So, it was a really great, it's always been a wonderful experience. So I did a video on the band Quantum, and mostly just, our experiences playing there, and my relationship to Meg Charette, who is the founder of the festival, and I've known her for actually a really long time. So check that out; that'll be up pretty soon. And then the other thing I've been doing, along with those other videos with music stuff, and then I've been still doing movie reviews. And today is going to be a big movie show. I'm really excited to talk about today's movie. I've been doing these kind of experimental videos with, well, actually, I should say I did one, and then I've been mixing things up. I've been doing these other videos that have been called, or that are entitled Smoke Break, and it's basically, they're a little bit more fetish driven things. I am a big fan of that lifestyle, and so I've been doing these little latex smoking videos, and that's been a lot of fun. Just trying some new things. They're really little short clips. And I did another video fairly recently where I had those elements, but I wanted to, I was really inspired by a lot of the noise music and experimental music I've been listening to, and I've been really listening to a lot of that stuff. And so I had this idea of an improv kind of loosely thought out video, and I basically made a video with some visual elements, and also I did music for the video, and it's about 10 minutes, and kind of put it all together, and it was really just one take. I just kind of, it was all that kind of was the whole point of the whole thing, is to have a I had a pretty clear concept of certain things that I really wanted to do, and but other than that, I wanted it to be really free and open. So I basically like recorded. I spent a little bit of time of recording the music first, ran through all of that, and then I took that music and had that accompany the visual element, and it was a lot of fun. And I've gotten some good feedback for with that. I'm going to be doing another video like that in a few days, so I'm pretty excited. It's just something new, and it's very much tied into, in a lot of ways, it's already really tied into what I do with Quantum, because we have that kind of thing anyway, and it's just kind of another way of exploring those kinds of things. So again, I love to try to bring variety to this channel. I like a lot of weird things and a lot of different things. So, but today's show anyway is on a movie that I realized that I never talked about, and I kind of can't believe I've never talked about this movie. And this is literally a movie that I have never heard anyone talk about on YouTube. I watch a lot of, since I started this channel, I've always been a big fan of YouTube, but since I started this movie channel, I have been digging into it more, and there's a lot of YouTube creators and people that I watch or check out their videos every day, and I really love YouTube. Is my favorite thing about the internet. It's good and bad. There's a lot of stuff you have to sift through, but when you find some good things, it's really really good. And for me, with YouTube, it's always obviously movie driven or music driven. I always watch. I'm always looking up videos of bands I really love, trying to find good quality videos, and then YouTube, movie channels. It's the same thing. I love to try to find good reviews, and this, I'm always discovering new people. Recently, I just discovered the Cobwebs channel, which is a movie channel, which is really really great. So there's a lot of cool shit out there. So I'm a big fan of all those things. But in all of my travels and all of my time, I've never heard this movie ever talked about, which I'm kind of shocked by, and as well as the director. And this movie is kind of an infamous movie for a lot of reasons, and that is Bad Lieutenant by the iconic Harvey Keitel. I have a long history with this movie. This is a DVD copy of this movie. I really need to get an upgrade of this film. This movie is a masterpiece. There's also what I'm doing, and again, it's going to be a few days until I get to watch it and do a show on it. Typically, what I do with this channel when I'm doing these videos is when I have an idea to do a show, and I'm always thinking of new ideas, and I always, pretty much every night I watch a movie. So a lot of the times when I realize, oh wait, I haven't talked about this movie or this or that, I will watch it that night, and then the following morning, like I'm doing now, I will do a show on. I usually always, whenever I do a show, I'm always the night before. I've always watched the movie just because I feel like it, obviously refreshes my memory, and there's I've been in the midst of doing all of these videos on a bunch of Western films. I'm still doing that, and that's there's a whole bunch of movies with that. In that case, it's all movies I've never seen. That's been really awesome. And then also in cases of movies that I have seen, like Bad Lieutenant, I always watch the movie that I'm going to do a show on the night before, and then do the video. And with this whole idea of talking about this movie that is such a masterpiece, directed by Abel Ferrara, uh, just an amazing director, one of my favorite directors actually. There's actually a remake of this film that came out a few years back, and that directed by Werner Herzog, and that is the remake, starring Nicolas Cage. And this is actually really awesome too. It's a remake, but it's a whole different setting. It's a different time period. It's quite a bit different, but it's really well fucked up, just like Bad Lieutenant is. It was directed by Werner Herzog and stars Nick Cage, my favorite actor. So I've only seen this movie once, which is crazy, but I really like this movie. And I only have two. I only have DVD copies of these movies, but both of them, especially this one, especially the original Bad Lieutenant, I definitely need to get a upgrade. I do have a couple of other Abel Ferrara films on Blu-ray, which I fairly recently got. Driller Killer, which I did a show on a while ago, which is such a one of the nastiest exploitation movies ever made. I love that fucking movie so much. I gotta watch that again. I've only watched it once since I bought it. Amazing movie. Just so demented and insane. So low budget and gritty and dirty. And then I have The Addiction, which is another Abel Ferrara film, which is starring Christopher Walken, which is one of the greatest vampire movies ever made that no one has ever fucking seen. So Abel Ferrara is a maniac. He, especially when he made this movie, he was kind of a lunatic, and I got into this was the first film of his that I ever saw, and this movie just fucked me up beyond belief when I first saw it. Like, this movie is not for the faint of heart. I was I was I watched this again last night, and I've seen this. I've seen the original Bad Lieutenant probably not a lot, which I'm surprised because this movie is so dark and dismal and fucked up that I don't know. You kind of like have to like I don't know. It's you kind of have to be. Well, I can watch anything really, anything. I mean, you obviously when you're in the mood for something, like if you're craving to watch a slasher movie or craving to watch a giallo film or a big budget action movie or whatever, you know you get those moods. But generally, I can watch any of those genres all the time, especially when it comes to horror films. But I think Bad Lieutenant is one of those movies you might have to be in a certain kind of mood to be able to watch it because it's fucked up and it's there's some awful shit in it and it's hard. It's generally hard to watch at times. But I think this is probably the greatest, you know, role that Harvey Keitel ever played. Um, but my friend Sean Russell, who was actually a guest on this show, turned me on to this movie, and it was like when I was in college, I really got into film. I had a couple of friends, my friend Charlie, and then also my friend Sean Russell, who was a guest on the show. Those guys, I had always been into film, but when I was in college, I really, because of those guys, I started to really get into film. Those guys were like really turning me on to, it was like right in college, especially Sean, and then when I got out of school, I started hanging out with Charlie Hendrick a lot, and that both of those guys, just introduced me to so many films and directors. And Sean introduced me to this movie, and I think it was after he had told me about it, and I think I didn't see it. I never heard of it. Then I watched it. I rented it on DVD, like during that time, and I think I was out of school. When I watched this last night, when I watched Bad Lieutenant, and again, I've only seen this movie about three times. So I think last night was my fourth time. But I'm like getting ready to go to bed, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, wow! Like that was my probably my exact words. And I just feel like this movie is definitely like if you had to make a top 10 list of like the most fucked up movies, I definitely have to say, and the most fucked up, the most depressing, and the darkest movies you can think of, Bad Lieutenant is definitely up there. Abel Ferrara's movies are all kind of fucked and super dark and super disturbing, especially the addiction and um, Driller Killer. His other films are pretty good too. So, but these three films are my absolute favorites, and I'm not sure which one if I had to pick because I love all of them equally. But the thing about Abel Ferrara as a director was, and this film came out. It's quite a few years old. It came out in 1992, and Abel Ferrara was a infamous director during that time. I mean, he he was definitely, and he's still directing films, and now he's pretty clean and sober. He was he had a really bad drug addiction and alcohol addiction when he was younger and when he was making a lot of these movies. And when I became aware of that and kind of got to know and read more about Abel Ferrara just as a person, I was like, okay, that makes sense. That's why his movies are just so fucked up. But they're also just so so gritty. All of his films were shot in New York City. All three of those films I mentioned, and also King of New York, which is another film that he's very well known for, which is a good movie. It's not. I don't. I have to see that again. It's not as good, I don't think, as the other film as these other films, but it's still really good. But he was a born and bred in New York City, and all of his films were shot in New York. Um, Watching this film, watching Bad Lieutenant, it really there's such a gritty realism to his films. You feel like you're watching a documentary. A lot of the shots are, I mean, he really Abel Ferrara was involved, on to to almost every capacity of his films. he wrote, he either wrote or co-wrote all of his films. He directed a lot of these films, and he also shot a lot of these films. Using handheld cameras. He shot everything in New York City, and there's such a an insane amount of realism, and it made me think of like that style cinema verite, which is a French style that was kind of really brought into its own by French directors. Francois Truffaut. Truffaut was an amazing French filmmaker, and cinema verite really has a really unique style, like where everything is shot more or less in a way where everything is realistic. And just when you're getting a scene of where there's actors, a lot of the times the camera is handheld, and it's close, and in person it's like in their space, so you get this realism that you don't get from a lot of other styles of filmmaking. And Francois Truffaut was a pioneer and very well known for making those kinds of gritty films, cinema verite. And I felt like when I was watching Bad Lieutenant, I'm like, yeah, that had to have been a real big influence. And he was very influenced. Also, Abel Ferrara was influenced by just a lot of art house films. But his films are so like incredibly low budget. Bad Lieutenant is I mean, it looks, and it's amazing because it looks so great. It's so well shot. It's so well put together. There's so many great scenes in this, like with the cinematography, that's just kind of breathtaking. But at the same time, it feels like the movie was shot with a budget of $50. Like it's so low budget. And when there's scenes of where Harvey Keitel's character is on the streets of New York, and there's like homeless people around, there's junkies around, that it's all real, and you're really seeing what New York was like during that time, in the 80s and 90s. You're really seeing that dark underbelly, and that's what Abel Ferrara was all about. And Harvey Keitel's character in this movie is just, I don't know, he's one of the most complex characters you'll ever see, I think, in cinema or in a movie. And he's also one of the most disgusting and vile people that you'll ever see are characters. And there's an interesting thing because he does such horrible, vile things in this movie, and he's like kind of this just a despicable, I don't know, piece of shit in this movie. But there's a vulnerability to his character, and you kind of see some empathy. And it's hard to admit to saying it, but there's like it's such a deep exploration of this character who is like literally like burning in hell. You see, I found myself having empathy for him because you do see his character, reach a point in the film of where he is, realizing these, comes to this realization of all of these horrible things that he has done, and and looking for help to a degree, and you do see his human side. But the whole premise of this movie, Harvey Keitel plays a detective, a cop in New York City, and he is also, while he's a cop, he's also just a out of control drug addict. He's like, he's doing cocaine, and he's like smoking crack. He's doing heroin. He's drinking himself to oblivion. He's also just completely and heinously corrupt to people. He does just awful things to everything and everyone that he comes in contact with. And it's really, I think this movie is just like, I looked up, I need to get an upgrade of this, and I'm sure there's a really great edition of this film on Blu-ray, but looking up, this is actually a really good copy of this movie. I can't remember where I bought this. I've had this copy, this DVD copy of Bad Lieutenant for a really, really long time, for years, and I can't remember where I got it. But there's no special features on here. I was hoping there's going to be some kind of commentary on here, but there isn't. But there is a little bit of a little special features thing of where they talk about what kind of inspired Abel Ferrara to make this movie, and he more or less says in these texts that he wanted to make this story about this cop who is working in one of the most crime-ridden cities in the world, especially at that time, and how being exposed to such terrible things, rape and murder and all these things constantly, what that would do to his psyche, and would he basically turn into one of those people. And it's kind of an exploration of that. And also, it's about redemption. There's a lot of religious symbolism in this movie, which is really awesome. And there's no hope. This movie is so bleak, and there's no hope in this movie. You see somebody who literally is digging his own grave in every way possible. And there is not a happy ending in this movie at all. It's an experience. But Harvey Keitel, like, I was thinking of it too, because Harvey Keitel was, he's gotten older now, and he hasn't made as many movies, but he, had a pretty explosive career for many years. And I was just thinking too, like, for him to take this risk with playing somebody who is so fucked up and so despicable and so like utterly lost, I mean, what a risk. I mean, it's unbelievable. There's also like scenes of where he's like drinking himself basically to death, and he is like in this orgy scene, and there's full frontal nudity, and you see his schlong right out there. I mean, just and he just shows himself being so fucked up and so vulnerable that I mean, for an actor to do that and go to those places is unbelievable. But his acting, his character in this film, like again, I mean, it's such an iconic role. Like, and especially by the third act of this film, you start seeing his character really coming to a realization of all of these incredibly terrible things that he's done. And it's, I mean, it's a tour de force. I love Harvey Keitel. I mean, Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, From Dusk Till Dawn. I mean, so many incredible films that he's had in his career. But I think Bad Lieutenant is my favorite. You really see, I mean, even though this movie is hard to, like, generally hard to watch at times, you know, there's scenes of where he's doing these horrible things. There's scenes of where he's, like, shooting up heroin where it looks so real, and there's, like, close ups of the needle in his arm, and it's like he's hanging out with all these crazy junkies. He's like arresting, you know, these drug dealers and then taking all of their drugs and all this shit. And there's scenes of where he's like doing heroin and he's putting a needle into his arm, and it's just like so hard to watch because it looks so real. So, but the places that he goes as an actor is just so unbelievable. Like, if you look at it just like as a say a master class in acting, Harvey Keitel's performance in this movie is just kind of spellbinding. So yeah, I mean, and again, it's not. I'm surprised I have not seen this movie more often. I'm gonna watch it. I definitely need to get a upgrade of this on Blu-ray, and I'm really excited to watch the remake with Nicolas Cage. I'm gonna do a show on that at some point in probably a few days or so. But I never hear this movie ever talked about. It's so low down and dirty. It's such a visceral, brutal. It's such a visceral and brutal experience. Yeah, not for the faint of heart. I was thinking of, you know, I watched this movie by myself last night. I was watching this movie by myself the other night, and I was thinking, like, occasionally I watch movies. I go to the movies with friends and stuff, and things like that. So I watch movies with people, but I was thinking, like, wow, I thought of a few people that I know that could not watch this movie. They couldn't get through it because it's so gross in a lot of ways. But it's a masterpiece. I mean, it's such an incredible film. And Abel Ferrara too. Like, again, like I said, when he was making, he's clean and sober now. He made a movie fairly recently with Willem Dafoe that is, I can't remember the name of it. It was okay. It was kind of, I think I did a show on it a while ago. I can't even remember the title of it. It was okay. It was a little bit of a bigger budget film. Willem Dafoe's fantastic as always, but it was okay. It was like really, well, kind of boring, and it was all right. It didn't have that gritty realism that I expect from Abel Ferrara, and it's, you know, it's something because during this time when Abel Ferrara was making these movies, he was kind of a fucked up person. You know, he had a real bad addiction problem. He was virtually homeless, I think, at one time. And it really shows in his work. I mean, you really see that. If you go on YouTube, you can find, and I believe all of the interviews are still on there. But if you go on YouTube and look up like the old school Conan O'Brien show, which was a talk show that I loved, there's one or two shows where Abel Ferrara was a guest on the show, and it's unbelievable. Like, he comes on the show like probably stoned and fucked up as possible, and he's drunk as hell, and he's on the show, and he is so like out of his mind, and it's insane. Like the interview it's got to be one of the most bizarre interviews I've ever seen. And when he made all of these movies, especially these three movies that I've been talking about, he was in the pits of despair as far as addiction, and it really shows, you know. And it's I don't know, weirdly ironic that he's clean and sober now and has been for quite a few years. I just don't think the movies that he makes now are nowhere near as good and as gritty. And again, I can't make excuses for somebody, slowly killing themselves, but it's something to I don't know. It's something to be said. It's like I sometimes think of this analogy of like the Doors. Like I'm a huge Doors fan, and of course, substance, alcoholism, drugs, and just everything. The total debauchery was always attributed to the Doors, and of course Jim Morrison. But those early records that they made, I love those albums. I love that stuff. Like to me, it was like back when rock and roll was like dangerous. And but I often think like, well, if Jim Morrison, like obviously he died at a really young age, he died at his own hand. Abel Ferrara is luckily still alive, but I often think like, well, if he wasn't as fucked up as he was, the music probably wouldn't have been as evocative. I don't know. It's an interesting thing. Not that I'm justifying that, getting back to Bad Lieutenant, though, I definitely recommend this movie. Abel Ferrara is like he's definitely one of my favorite directors of all time. A style like no other, and yeah, what a journey. So thanks again, and I'll see you next time. Peace.